Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the A250 Leadership Series. I'm your host, David Fisher. This is our third and final conversation, and I think we saved the best for last. Tonight is about two things: Young Washington, a film releasing in theaters tomorrow, and what it means to be a leader. Tomorrow's the big day. Opening weekend. Grab your tickets by going to angel.com/YW Integrity or scan the QR code on your screen. We've talked about service, we've talked about resilience, but now tonight we close with integrity, the night before the film opens. If you've been with us for all 3 episodes of this series, thank you. If this is your first time, you picked a great night to tune in. The themes guiding this series were developed with special thanks to a lecture series created by Belmont University's Power of a Story course, with a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. A major thank you to them. This live event was also made possible through Angel's collaboration with the Wonder Project, the creatives behind Young Washington. But now, before I introduce our final guests of this series, let's take one last look at Young Washington, the trailer. We'll see you after.
Why can I not become a British officer?
Because you are not British, George.
There must be a path.
There is not for you.
Go dig my grave. Oh, it's wide and deep.
I sense a storm looming over the Ohio territories.
To tell this world.
I could go there, survey it for you.
So you have ambition.
Since the Crown sent me to serve, I've yet to have a good experience with a colonist.
I look forward to changing your opinion.
Much of that territory is unexplored. It's wild, unpredictable, and dangerous.
What are you called?
George Washington.
Whose fort is that?
It's the French, and land claimed by the British Crown.
Demand the French leave.
Who does own this land, if not the one who has the will to tame it? Tell your king we will never leave.
Then they will force you to leave.
Oh.
These are not the open battlefields to which you're accustomed.
I have fought in a great many battlefields.
Not in the New World, sir.
If you fail, I'll have a colonial to blame.
This is a direct order, and we will obey it!
It's not your fault, George.
Major Washington.
You lost.
You started a war!
George, there's no fairness here.
That is not the way the world works! Then someone should remake it!
Choose your path. Make it yours.
Forward!
And prove them wrong.
That is such an amazing trailer. I never tire of seeing it. Amazing. Young Washington in theaters tomorrow, July 3rd. Get your tickets right now at angel.com/YW Integrity or scan that QR code on your screen. Tonight, I am so excited for you. I am joined by Jon Erwin, the Jon Erwin, founder of the Wonder Project, and the only director to receive an A+ CinemaScore 4 times. Wait, I actually think there is another Erwin, might be Andy, who also received an A+ CinemaScore 4 times. Jon, you got to share the stage sometimes. He also did House of David, that has been watched by over 60 million people worldwide. Young Washington is his latest film as director, writer, producer. Very excited to see Jon tonight. We're also joined by Professor Greg Jackson, the America 250 professor at the Center for Constitutional Studies at Utah Valley University, host of History That Doesn't Suck, author of Been There, Done That, How Our History Shows Us What We Can Overcome, and one of the historical consultants on Young Washington. Jon and Greg, it is awesome to have you both with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. This is a pleasure.
And I had to do, I just wanted, you left out my educational pedigree, which is that I had to do kindergarten twice because I was an ADHD disturbance to the class in Birmingham, Alabama. That is the extent of my educational pedigree. So I'm glad to be alongside Greg for this interview. And shout out to Angel. Seriously, I've done in addition to, like you say, House of David, I have done other films like American Underdog, and I can only imagine, just to plug them. But I will say, probably the best trailer of anything I've ever been involved in. Really, really great trailer that awesome. Angel cut, and I love it as much as you do. Really well done.
Well, we can only cut a trailer from the creatives that give us the right kinds of film and footage. So honestly, Jon, when every time we would see the dailies come in, it was such an exciting thing. And I think our guild, who voted for this film and who said this is a film we want, we're just so excited to have the two of you here, because the heart of a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight on integrity has everything to do with something that isn't pulled apart, right? Integrity is about bringing everything together. And I think, Jon, you and your team, you brought everything together for us in this film. And I can't wait to have a conversation with the two of you tonight. So glad to have you both here. Jon, The Wonder Project. You are the founder of this incredible place. You have made films that have collectively reached hundreds of millions of people, and Young Washington is your latest. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why this film, Young Washington, what it means to you.
Well, I'm a filmmaker and an entrepreneur. I think that the foundational concept of wonder is to tell stories well, hopefully make them really entertaining, that restore faith in things worth believing in. And I certainly feel as strongly about Young Washington as I do about House of David. The idea that America, while imperfect, is worth believing in and worth celebrating. And for me, I tell the audience stories that have first deeply moved me. And so, House of David was something that I wanted to do for decades since I was 16 years old. Washington, I wanted to do for 11, 12 years now. And I fell in love with the story of the American Revolution and the story of Washington. And I really, it moved me so much as I really learned the story of our founding in a more profound way. I was filled with awe and wonder and a sense of stewardship and pride and this idea that this American experiment is entrusted to us, and I wanted to make a movie about it. So to think that, one of the other things that we say at Wonder is what can we do together that none of us can do alone? And, everyone in Angel has just been such great friends for all the Harmons that I know, and there's a lot of them, are just great friends. And we've wanted to work together on something for many years. And we kind of birthed this idea together in Utah, as a matter of fact. And so to see it come to life and to see a movie called Young Washington that comes out on the 250th anniversary of our nation, we've been waiting for this weekend for a long, long time. And I'm very grateful for the partnership, and I'm very grateful finally for the audience to get to see the movie.
Thank you. That's awesome. We are grateful to have you. We're grateful for the collaboration that we've had with Wonder, and I feel absolutely the same. Do together what we couldn't do alone. That concept is very meaningful. Professor, can I call you Greg? Is that okay?
Call me Greg, please.
Okay,
do.
I'm going to call you Greg this time.
You can also call me Professor if you want. It's not absolutely at all, but you can.
Jon, honorarily, I dub it upon my sir.
Nice.
I've been waiting for this for a very long time. There you saw it. I'm an honorary professor.
Greg, this is going to take a long time, everyone, to get through this. This is very fun. These two I can feel it already. I can feel it. Greg, you are the America 250 professor. You host one of the most popular history podcasts in the country. You consulted on this film. We were having a conversation ahead of this where you're just like pulling out facts. Jon was asking a couple questions, I was asking, and you're just like giving us the lowdown on everything historical. Tell us a little bit about you and what drew you into this project.
Oh, I don't know if there's much more to say about me. I'm a history professor, and I love history. I love the American project, the American experiment. I believe fervently in the American Republic. I think I'll leave it at that for me. George Washington has long been a personal hero of mine. In an immature sense when I was a child, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the more surface level way that kids learn about the Founding Fathers. But as a professional historian, as I dug deeper into George's life and story as an adult myself, and saw all the complicated layers and really met him and saw his shortcomings and failures, my reverence and respect for him only grew. I loved meeting a man who was so self-aware, who knew his own shortcomings and did his absolute best to overcome them. It changed who he was. He went from being this person that I put up on a pedestal as someone who was inaccessible to being a real role model, someone I could try to be more like, in that very human, accessible sort of way.
I love that. And I love the fact that you use the word accessible, because that's oftentimes when you take such a huge figure, Jon, you take this massive person that, we see in a very stoic way, and you make them accessible. You actually bring them to life. There's something really quite amazing, because you lose yourself in the story. You almost forget that you're watching George Washington. You're just watching. It's like you're seeing someone in real time, engaging, because it's not this stoic kind of person that used to live. He's right there. He tells a little bit about that process of making George successful.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is I think Ken Burns calls it emotional archaeology, which I really like that term. And for a filmmaker, it's revelatory to explore these characters. They say a filmmaker finds their story and tells it over and over again. The adaptation of true stories is something that I've just really fallen in love with. And so I just really enjoy that process. And a lot of it is asking who's the man underneath the myth. And whenever there's a figure that is mythical and important. I remember going to Mount Vernon in the early stages of research on this, and I think one of the gate attendants were like, "Oh, are y'all here making a movie or whatever?" We're searching for a movie, and she's like, "What is it?" And we're like, "Oh, it's on young Washington." And she's like, "Oh, I guess he was young once." It's not something that you think about. You think about him kind of carved in granite, but a lot of times I like to try to fully understand who the person is underneath the legend, and then how that person was formed. And so often, like when you think about Washington and his ability to just endure, he had an incredibly high pain tolerance, which I think was the key to winning the Revolutionary War. He could endure in ways other people couldn't. Where did that come from? Where did that sense of stamina and an unrelenting belief that galvanized everyone around him come from? And so I love that exploration, and I find that meaningful in my own life. And I think the reason why these, call them heroes' journeys, I think those reasons why they're told over and over again, whether they're factual, like House of David or Washington, or even fictional, like Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter. I think the reason that these stories resonate with us is because we all feel that we have some destiny and some role to play in something bigger than we are. And I think we all have an inner longing and an inner call to step into that. And I think that's why these heroes' journeys are so resonant. And I love telling them, and especially when they're true. I hope you find when you watch Washington, this was an imperfect person who stumbled and fell and failed, and yet he also grew and didn't give up and didn't quit and learned and became he became worthy of Mount Rushmore, over time. But he wasn't perfect, and his journey started very early when he was very young, in a chapter that many people don't know about. And so I love these type of stories, and I find them incredibly meaningful. And I hope the audience feels, as a filmmaker, this is me exploring the material. That's meaningful in my own way, and I hope it becomes as meaningful to the audience as it is to me when I'm making it.
I mean, you speak about the story that people may not know. I'm going to go to Greg here and just ask, what are some of the interesting facts that people don't know about Washington?
Oh, well, you want to keep it to young Washington, or do we have 5 hours? What?
Let's how about give us two, give us two kind of interesting.
Sure. A favorite of mine, which I know Jon and I we discussed, and he even filmed this scene, and it didn't make it into the film, is that George Washington nearly joined the British Navy. That he desperately wanted to do that. He thought that this was his path to success, and his mom said no. And we won't get into all the reasons for that, but this devastated young George Washington. He was convinced that his opportunity to have a meaningful life had pretty much sailed away, if you will, right in that moment. Yeah, pun intended. It's important to understand our puns. And so I think it's fascinating to think about, and I'm far from the first historian to say what happens to history had George Washington got on that ship. Now, I will tell you, I number among those historians who genuinely question if the revolution could have happened without George Washington. There were so many who aspired to pick him off his perch, if you will, who wanted to be the glorious commander of the Continental Army. Horatio Gates, Conway, and they were not up to snuff. I don't think anyone had the tenacity, humility, leadership skills, the approachability while maintaining dignity that this moment required. No one threaded that needle like George. Another one I'll share with you, and my mind goes to it because Jon was mentioning George Washington's incredible pain tolerance. We often think about his dental ills and woes. While he was president, he had an abscess on his leg that had to be cut out. So he endured surgery with no, real form of
anesthesia,
painkillers, anesthesia, you name it. They just cut right into his leg, and he laid there, grit his teeth, and took it. And, this is a man well into his, we're basically his last decade of life. So, pretty senior. And that just speaks to kind of who he always had been.
Yeah. That's a lot of detail. And you are a man that knows all of the detail, Greg. Powerful, though, to kind of think about this from the standpoint of not every story needs to become a movie, right? And it takes a visionary to be able to actually see a story and say, this actually can work on the big screen. Jon, what was that process like for you when you decided this needs to be on the big screen? This has to go into thousands of theaters across the country and the world.
I mean, first of all, if there's any other, I guess any other form of storyteller listening, filmmaker, author, I think ultimately, I like James Cameron says, you got to absorb before you can radiate. And I think maybe the purest thing to do is just let a story move you deeply, and then tell it to the best of your ability. So that's kind of what I do, what I intend to do with the stories that I tell. Is what I love it is when a story, I'm not looking for a film, and then a story, I find a story and I just am so moved by it that I go on kind of a curiosity bender, learn as much as I can, and then I let it sit for a while, and then it a story finds its time, and so to me it was like a decade ago, I think, maybe a little more, and I was in New York. It was right when Hamilton was breaking, and I wanted to go because we were working there. Of course, we couldn't get in because we didn't have $10,000 and we weren't a celebrity. It was that time in Hamilton. So we went next door to see Les Mis, and that's where we saw John Michael, who we cast in I Can Only Imagine. So it's very serendipitous that we went next door. And do you see I'm plugging my films? I'm trained to do this, where, I Can Only Imagine. So anyway, but it was something about the fair. I come from the South. So it was something about the fairness of not being let into Hamilton. I was like, I'll rage against this by reading 30 books, and I just started, I think it was Hamilton in Washington. I showed them, and And so and it's interesting. I read like 2 or 3, and then I couldn't stop reading them. I mean, and I just to those out there, if you haven't taken that dive, the story of the American Revolution is just that good. I mean, it's incredible. What an incredible story with very complex and interesting characters. And there's no way on paper the revolution should have worked or should have lasted. And I just fell in love with the story, and I got really obsessed with it. And above all, Washington stood out to me. Because he is a bit of a perplexing character to understand, because he's this stoic, and yet what I found is he had this raging personality, and he's a man of great feeling, and even a great temper underneath this quest of self-mastery and self-forging. And so it was kind of, his personality was almost like a lid on a volcano, in my opinion. And then I just, it struck me that, I guess historians could argue, but like to Greg's point of what of course, what happens if he doesn't get on that boat when he's 14? I mean, if you think about it, for a time before there was a national anthem or creed or a flag, there was this one man that galvanized the idea of America for a period of time. So this whole concept hinged on one person. So I'm instantly made of question of who is that person? How are they able to endure that? What do they have to become to endure that? And how did they become that person? And what I find with some of the great figures of history, whether it's Washington or Churchill or others, is you actually come much more to a defining failure early in life, not a defining success, that so forges them that they become the leader that destiny requires. And that's what happened with this film, that it was not Washington's accomplishments. It was actually something that he did. He profoundly screwed up early in his life with his first command, and it was how he self-assessed, self-evaluated, learned, humbled himself, that he learned, I think, what true leadership was. And so I wanted to make a film where for me, a film is a thorough examination of a question for me when I'm making it. And I wanted to make a film about the question, what is leadership? Is it necessary? What is it? And what's the bad version and the good version and everything in between? And I think over the course of this movie, you kind of see both, because as with any, I'm going to go make a name for myself story, there's a bit of selfish ambition in that, and he wanted the wrong things. It was about him. And I think over the course of this story, he really comes to the conclusion that to lead is actually to serve those that you're entrusted with, and to serve a cause that's bigger than you are. And you see him make that transition over the course of this film. So I felt like more than any other chapter in his life, you see the forging of the man and the discovery of everything that he was supposed to become early in his life in this unknown chapter, which I found really fascinating.
You're so dead on.
You're a professor. You can buy it anytime you want.
You fast forward now to June 1775, when the Second Continental Congress is making Delegate Colonel George Washington the general and sending him north up to Cambridge, where he's going to take over this ragtag bunch of New England militia and call them a Continental Army, when they are a far cry from anything approaching that. He's not going, look at me, I've made it, I'm the big leader. He is filled with humility. If we even dare to call a speech, it's so brief. His words responding to the Congress, in which he basically says, I will do this. I am unworthy of it. And it doesn't read to me like someone who's just a good politician. I mean, that he's followed because of his sincerity. And I just have no doubt in my mind. I guess I should say, as a human, I know it. As a historian, I have to acknowledge I don't have the source for it. But I do feel, Fort necessity is flashing through his head as the Congress is putting this onus on him. As he's going north, he is thinking about what it is to be overconfident and to take and miss shots. And he's determined to not repeat those sorts of mistakes.
And we're talking about...
Go ahead, John.
If I might add, on Greg's ad, which I love,
I may.
You know what struck me as interesting, if I may, that should be the title of this.
Yes.
I am your humble obedient servant, if I may. I think what I found interesting is that the greatest, in my opinion, and the greatest risk of losing the Revolutionary War that I think people don't realize in this war of kind of attrition, where you're just trying to outlast an invading enemy until help arrives, is that we did not have a standing army. So every 6 months, I think, the army could just leave. As in, like, the whole army pretty much could just be like, we served our time and we're going back to our college. So there had to be someone at the center of this that could so galvanize the idea by force of character and integrity and kind of mythic presence that it kept the army together over a long period of time in extreme circumstances. And that's where I'm like, who is this person that you were willing to die for? Like, I will not die not only for this concept, I will die for that person. And I'm going to stay even when I don't have to.
John, I know we want to focus on young Washington, but as you say that, let me just point us to December 1776. The Continental Army is now down to about 2,000 men. It has been chased out of New York, across the Delaware, into Pennsylvania at this point, through New Jersey, Pennsylvania. A last contingent of this pittance of an army shows up. The trail that they've carved in the snow behind them, again, this is sourced stuff. There are streaks of blood from their unshod feet as they're marching into this camp. And their enlistments end that month, December 31st. It is December 1776. This is why Thomas Paine writes that these are times that try men's souls. The entire revolution is held in the hands of about 2,000 underfed, underclothed, ill-shod, untrained soldiers. George Washington is the only thing that's holding this together. This is why he makes that, we downplay it sometimes, but this truly daring, audacious attack against the Hessians, right? On Christmas, crosses back across the Delaware and strikes this small victory, and then turns around and wins at Princeton. And he's doing this in part just to show his men that they shouldn't give up. George is the reason that these men, many of them, enough of them, re-enlist only a week or two later. The revolution, again, it would have died without him. And we don't get General Washington without first having young Washington.
These are powerful stories. And when you think about the man that did that, the man that you just described, Professor, I feel like it's right to call you Professor in this moment. The man that you described started somewhere, and that had to get put through trial. I absolutely love the idea of defining failure is actually where we start, John, that you said is there's always something, and I think people can relate to that personally. Like, there's a defining failure in your life that actually galvanizes you to get to that next level of the real virtue that it's going to take to have success, to have real success. And I think integrity, back to our theme for the night, is something about that. And the integrity of this film itself, I mean, the two of you had probably a very unique relationship in crafting where you wanted the story to ultimately go, and using Greg's kind of weighing in on historical fact, but then John, you taking the hero's journey and engaging it. How did you make the tougher choices versus the easy choice? We see films all the time that just dumb us all down, right? And how did you wrestle with that in the process of putting this film together?
Well, I remember, again, I enjoyed adapting true stories. And I like this phrase from Aaron Sorkin, who's an incredible writer, who says that when you adapt a true story to film, it's not a photograph, it's a portrait. So you're trying to paint an accurate portrait, and you're trying to do it in a very constrained time period, 2 hours in a theater. And so there are some concessions you make of compressing events. So compressing time, pulling things that might happen before this story starts into the story or vice versa. And then compositing characters typically, but you're really trying to get the story right. Also claiming the words of George Lucas that films are never complete, they're only abandoned. So I just think movies are, and TV shows are a team sport. And so you want to just try to get the best people around you and around the ideas you can. And then you want to make, do the best work that you can. And so, I think one of the cool things that link filmmakers to historians are, we love storytelling, and we're storytellers in different forms. And so to me, I saw Greg as a storyteller in a different form, obsessed with the same subject. So that makes perfect sense to bring him in. And also, I would say some, not all, historians can be somewhat dry, and that's sort of like what Greg isn't. He's like at the far end of really an engaging, immersive way to tell the stories.
Thank you.
And so it's a great collaboration and a wonderful way to learn about the material. And again, just do the best you can. It's not, I say the same thing with House of David, which is obviously the source material is the Bible there. This is not a replacement for the actual story. This is a love letter to the actual story as told by a filmmaker, and doing the best that they can. But I really try to get the story right. I remember we were doing American Underdog, and the Kurt Warner story, and Kurt signed a Rams helmet and just said, "You got the story right," and that's always what you aspire to. And in this case, my hope is that people would see this story and it would kind of instigate. And even as it has been screened around the country ahead of the release, that has happened. If people watch it, their curiosity is sparked, and they immediately start going and researching and reading. And that's my hope with this film. Not that it would be a replacement for history or some of the great books, including Greg's, but that it would be a gateway to them in the form of an instigating event in someone's life. That's what a movie can do. And so to me, you just do the best you can, and you try to pack as much as you can in a 2-hour period, but you're trying to get the portrait of the character right. And that I think is the exercise of a film.
I want to turn us real quick to the fact that we are celebrating 250 years of this extraordinary experiment. And our country today feels divided in ways that are pretty hard to talk about and to experience. And I think this movie has something to say, actually, about all of this. And young Washington would have something to say about this. And how would you put, maybe I'll throw it to you, Greg, first, and you can follow up, Jon. How do we deal with this where we live, the times we're living in?
Well, I'm going to be honest, a little bit of a cheat here. This is literally what I've written my book to address. So you want my full thoughts, then they're done. That's the book. The short version, though, is that for me as a historian, I look back at 250 years of the American experience, and we just are not living through as unique a time as so many Americans think. And that isn't to downplay the division and the cynicism that is felt out there, but to point out that self-governance isn't easy. Government by the people and for the people never was. This is a romanticizing myth that we are best off to let go of. And that isn't to say that we have to be as visceral, at each other's throats. My thoughts go to James Madison's Federalist Number 10, in which he effectively argues that you can't have liberty and avoid partisanship at the same time. It's just not possible, period. And he compares liberty to oxygen and basically says, the same way that oxygen feeds fire, so liberty feeds partisanship. And to get rid of liberty in order to get rid of partisanship would be as stupid as saying we're going to just get rid of oxygen, so we don't have fire. Well, then you kill everything, right? It's a great analogy. And James Madison, Little Jemmy, as I prefer to call him, it was his nickname in the era, 5'4". I'd say he's a short king, but he didn't like kings. He's just so spot on. So for us today, it's important to remember that we are going to disagree. That like Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, by the time we get to the 1790s, we might even disagree so ardently that we are genuinely convinced that those who are on the other side of the political spectrum actually want to destroy the country, because that is exactly what Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton thought of one another. They're Federalists and they're Jeffersonian Republicans, our original two parties. And the best thing we can do is to, first of all, trust in this incredible structure, our separation of powers, our checks and balances, our federal republic. And, not naively trust in that, but also remember to practice public virtue. And that is a concept that all the founders talked about. They all defined it in their own unique ways. But among the ideas that they discussed with public virtue was education. You can't be a good voter and be ignorant. You have to study the issues. You have to seek an education. And look, I'm a university professor. Of course, I value a college degree. When I say education, I'm talking your reading, your thinking. I've had many brilliant students who've gone on to do great things, and it always breaks my heart when I get the student who's really there for the piece of paper. Having a college degree doesn't make you educated, and not having a college degree does not mean that you are not educated either. We've got to continue to learn and to think for ourselves and participate in the process. And I believe that the American people will continue to carry this experiment of ours another 250 years to come if we do that.
Yeah, I think it's, interesting experience when I went to do House of David. We shoot the show in Greece, and you're at like Agro-Corinth or whatever, which is a biblical site as well. And that castle's 2,500 years old, and it reminded me that what an amazing anniversary, 250 years, and yet on the global stage, America is a new idea, and it is an idea. I think the way I think of America is it's the greatest idea in the history of nations, and it's entrusted to us. And I think if you were to talk to Washington or any of the other founders before their death, they would have been afraid of a divide in the country. They would have been afraid that it wouldn't last, that the Union wouldn't hold together. And so to the extent that it has, I think it's so incredible, and it's entrusted to us. And it really is this experimental form of government. And what I've learned in my life, having grown up in the South in Alabama, and then living in Los Angeles now, and filming everywhere in between for many years, and going back and forth to Los Angeles. I think if you're from the South and you mock a city and make fun of it long enough, that's probably where God's going to send you. That's something. But I'm saying, people, you misinterpret whatever you think LA is or whatever, and it's just a lot of people, good people. What I've learned is that we're closer than we think. We're not as divided as we think. If you take the most extreme political divide on either side, Greg, and correct me if I'm wrong, mathematically it's 7% on either side. The rest we hold in common. So we hold the great majority of beliefs in common. Certainly there are things that we divide on, but there's a lot that we agree on. And I think we're missing that conversation and that knowledge. And one of the things that I was raised in Alabama, so, you're not trained to think this way, but as I started studying American history, I got to the Constitutional Convention in 1787, 89, 87 or 89
is when the federal government starts. 87 is when we had the convention.
Yeah, so 89. So, but the idea that they called it the Great Compromise, our Constitution, and that it was basically the magic was kind of in the middle of two extremes, and to the extent that that is the magic of our country, I think, is actually finding middle ground between two extreme opinions and a political process that allows us to do that slowly. And so I actually think that there's far more alignment than we realize in this country still today, even if it doesn't feel like it. And so one of the things that I love is we can celebrate that in the form of a movie. I'm shocked that the only movie in theaters nationwide on the 250th anniversary that really celebrates the origin story of America is Young Washington. I'm very grateful, but it's also surprising to me. And I do think a lot of the problems that we are facing are the fact that we just don't know our origin story. We're a country that's bound by ideas and ideals.
Yes.
And so to the extent that we lose sight of those, we kind of lose the ties that bind. And so I think sometimes when it feels this divided or it feels this perilous, sometimes it's better to go back to the beginning and really say, why are we here? What is the purpose of this place? And to the extent that we can really revisit our origin story, I think it can reinvigorate. All I know is when I took the time to really study it, any sort of, you cannot feel disdain and gratitude at the same time. Those two emotions cancel each other out. And so I think when you take the time to study, it is America's history, it is almost impossible to feel any sort of disdain because it is so replaced with gratitude and a sense of pride and a sense of stewardship of an idea that on the world stage is still new. And I think that I hope that the movie can serve as a idea that this is something we can all be proud of and that we are all stewards of. And disagreement is a part of actually what makes America truly great. Because I think we were talking about this before. We like, if you want to just end partisan divide in the country, get a dictator. That's the way to, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the idea that we can disagree and find a middle ground and find a way forward and find the magic in the middle is actually a part of what makes America unique and truly spectacular. And so I just think that there's, again, to go back to Wonder Project's concept of stories that restore faith in things worth believing in. Are there problems? Is it an imperfect union, or we're still trying? Sure. But there is a lot to still believe in today.
And Jon,
in America.
That's why they called this a more perfect union. I mean, as they wrote the Constitution, for crying out loud, they knew they weren't going to get it perfect. That's why they put an article in there specifically saying, this is how to change it, guys. We know this stuff's going to come up. And this is a more perfect. It's better than the Articles of Confederation, our first attempt at union. It's just more. It isn't perfect, and we know it.
I mean, you take our country's history, and it culminates here at this really interesting moment, the 250th of our country's existence, right? Our history, our celebration of coming together, right? 250 years. Think about the fact that tomorrow, Jon, the journey that you took, the seed that was planted in your heart, that you brought to the big screen, gets released, right? The collaboration between Angel and the Wonder Project, all the different people that had to come together to be greater than the one. The whole was greater in this case, and it really kind of drove towards this moment. I mean, it's got to be pretty cathartic at some level, nerve-wracking. We need you as the Angel Guild to go out. This is the time to buy your tickets. It's important to buy tickets and to go support, because our opening weekend, it's every single weekend we're going after it. And we want to show in force just how strong both the Angel Guild is, the fans of the Wonder Project, and the fans of this country to go out and support this film. I've had a good time talking with you guys. You guys are actually pretty funny, if I may. And you may. Right? You may. And I will say this. I will say this. Let's do something. I've done this on every one of our sessions. This is rapid fire. Just going to do some questions to you guys. No time to really react or think. You just got to tell the answer. Some of them are a little deeper. Some are just fun. But in one word, what would you say defines this film? Greg, one word.
Earnest.
Thank you.
I mean, I would hope the word would be entertaining. That's my goal, is to entertain the audience. Meaningful.
I think see the different disciplines coming to play there.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite scene? No spoilers, but what would be your favorite scene? How would you say it? Where do you look
For
at
necessity.
It? For necessity.
I think it would be that there's a scene between Sir Ben Kingsley and William, who plays Washington, that I just thought that I was just so proud of both of them. And it's kind of when, who doesn't want to be recognized for what they are and what they've become and what they've done? It's kind of that scene in the movie, and I really like it.
Powerful. One leader, alive or dead,
Okay.
who led with integrity. Who comes to mind?
For me, it's Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, you took mine.
Churchill. Nice.
Yeah.
John picked Churchill too.
Oh yeah. Walt Disney. No. Oh yeah.
The Angel Guild greenlit this film, and you've worked with us on that, John. And Greg, you've been now a historian on, I believe, 2 of our projects. What has it been like working within our ecosystem at Angel, and what do you both want the audience at a certain level to, the Angel Guild, when I say the audience, the Angel Guild that made this film possible, what would you say to them to come to theaters?
Historian's perspective here. This is my first foray into, consulting on films, but things I've heard from other historians is how much they don't enjoy doing it, and many who won't do it because they feel that they're completely ignored. And I want everyone to know that I did not feel that I felt respected. I felt that Jon, that's why I use the word earnest, that he was truly interested in that portrait. And I appreciated what I would call the positive tension of, I point out things to Jon, that's not the date, or that's
great.
The guy.
That's a great relationship.
Right. But, I don't come away from this going, I come away with it with an admiration and respect for this different medium, and knowing my place in it, and really feeling that, as Jon puts it, looking to paint a portrait that was there, and it's an honor to be able to watch it and think like, we discussed that, and I see where that's woven in. So I would want viewers to know that they had a director who was certainly not lazy about getting the big, I might even say, spiritual themes, right? Even when perhaps factoids depart, the broader themes right. And it's been a privilege to be a part of that.
Thank you. I would say, as a member of, I am a proud member of the Angel Guild. And so I would say, what can we do together that we can't do alone? And there's a magical thing with a movie. We've often said a movie ticket is your vote. And that is very true and applicable, because it triggers this incredible phenomenon called FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. And anytime a group of people, whether it's fans of a horror suspense movie or a comic book movie or a faith movie or an American movie, like whenever I guess what you call an affinity group, any group of people joins their voices together at the same time, it's like mountains move. And it's this way to say something as one voice together. And what I've seen over and over again in my career that I'm so grateful for, whether it's the success of a movie like I Can Only Imagine or Jesus Revolution or House of David, whenever a core audience just gets so loud together, it just goes and goes and goes, and tens of millions of people see it that would have never seen it otherwise, because they, the frequent movie-going audience just watches what is popular. So when we can make noise together, it's amazing to see what can happen. And so I unabashedly am asking for your vote and your voice with this movie. First of all, I'm an entertainer first. That's my job, is to entertain you, and it's a privilege to entertain you. I love to get away to the movies, anything that I can go see with my kids, and we go so many times because it's just a way to step out of the stresses of life into an entertaining story. But if you can tell a story in an entertaining way, you can also tell it in a meaningful way if it's the right story. And so my hope with this is that, look, it's action-packed. This is definitely, I've always described this as Pride and Prejudice meets The Revenant, and it's this like action adventure into the frontier, and I hope that it will wildly entertain you and your family. But what I have noticed is that everyone who sees it immediately says, this is the next step I took. And by the way, Greg's book's an immediate next step, and many of his books. But people almost naturally take a next step of researching it, especially because it's a story that not many people know about in his early life. People start asking, is that true? Did that happen? What happened next?
Right.
And so my hope is that we can spark America's curiosity again, and we can do it together because we're going to champion this movie together. So if I were to ask you to go see this movie, that is why, because I have seen mountains move when we unify our voice together. And I think we have an opportunity to do that. And again, just another shout out to the Angel Guild and to Angel on the 250th anniversary of America, which is singular in our lifetime. This is the only movie that celebrates America's story in theaters nationwide. That is a crazy statistic. And I'm so grateful that we're doing it together. And I'm asking the audience for your support. I should say, or, you just don't care about America. That's cool too. I'm just kidding. But basically, it really does matter. Opening weekend really does matter. And I think, I'm asking for a group of us to say we care about the country, we care about each other, and we think America is worth celebrating. And this is one of the ways we're going to do it.
If I may.
You may.
Let's give Washington a far better July 3rd in 2026 than he had in 1754.
True.
Nice. that was the date, right? For viewers, that's a date.
The date. What an interesting statistic, though. Also, July the 3rd. He fails at Fort Necessity. He's defeated at Fort Necessity, the only surrender of his life. July the 4th, 20 years later, or 21 years ish, America declares independence with Washington as their general leader. So it's just another testament. Just keep going. Don't give up, and so, yeah, but let's give him a better July 3rd too. And I can't wait to see everyone at the movies. I will be there with my family. I hope you will be as well.
Jon and Greg, thank you. Integrity is the thread that runs through everything we've talked about in this entire series, to be honest. You can't truly serve without it. You can't truly keep going without it. And you can't become someone worth following without it. Washington had it at 22 years old. I hope this film reminds all of us what that looks like. This has been the A250 Leadership Series. 3 conversations, 3 themes, 1 story that America and the whole world needs right now. Young Washington is in theaters tomorrow, July 3rd, America's 250th birthday. You can get your tickets right now at angel.com/YW Integrity or scan that QR code on your screen. Go to it. Take your family to it. Take a friend. This is the kind of story worth showing up to at the movie theaters. Thank you for being with us for all 3 of these conversations. We hope you can go back to them time and time again to remind yourself of what's important: service, resilience, and integrity. Thanks again, and we'll see you at the movies. One last time, here's the trailer to Young Washington.
Why can I not become a British officer?
Because you are not British, George.
There must be a path.
There is not for you.
Go dig my grave. Both wide and deep.
I sense a storm looming over the Ohio territories.
To tell this world.
I could go there, survey it for you.
So you have ambition.
Since the Crown sent me to serve, I've yet to have a good experience with a colonist.
I look forward to changing your opinion.
Much of that territory is unexplored. It's wild, unpredictable, and dangerous.
What are you called?
George Washington.
Whose for is that?
It's the French, and land claimed by the British Crown.
Demand the French leave.
Who does own this land, if not the one who has the will to tame it? Tell your king we will never leave.
force you to leave. Oh. These are not the open battlefields to which you're accustomed.
I have fought in a great many battlefields.
Not in the New World, sir.
If you fail, I'll have a colonial to blame.
This is a direct order, and we will obey it!
It's not your fault, George.
Major Washington. You lost.
You started a war!
George, there's no fairness here.
That is not the way the world works! Then someone should remake it!
Choose your path. Make it yours.
Forward!
And prove them wrong.